rebuild these actuators. For openers, you want to take out the old bearing, the bottom bearing. And you can see the old grease in there is pretty bad. Looks like peanut butter. These pieces come completely out. And I'll show you how nasty this grease is. Okay, you've got the upper bearing in there. Some of them have a design where it is like a rubber O-ring. If the rubber O-ring is broken, of course, you would discard it and you'll have to get another piece. In this case, this is one with the rubber O-ring. Alright, not too bad. And then there will be a brass washer, which will always go, taper will always go down towards the base on the top piece. This unscrews. And there you have it. There's everything out of the original casing. This is what I was expressing before, that sometimes there's either a solid ring that it pivots on or the ball bearing. In this case, this was from the front actuator on that same exact side. And as you can see, it does have a ball bearing design. Okay, now that you've cleaned all the parts, you want to make sure that there's no bad scores on this worm gear here. And this is actually what drives it, so you just want to make sure that these are intact. And then you start greasing the pieces up for reassembly. There's no real need for grease on this as it doesn't rotate. And I just like to put a thin layer on there so there's no oxidation of the parts. Start slipping them in the order which they came out. Next is the brass washer. Just want to make sure again the taper faces down, and this is the bottom. Make sure it's fully seated in there. Next, in this case, you can't really mix these up because one's actually larger than the other. In this case, this is the style. Again, I called this rubber before. It's not actually rubber. It's a very hard material. So we want to get some grease on there as well. This one's important to get the grease on because it's actually, the motor rides on this. So you really want to lube that up good. Insert that in there like such, so it doesn't fall over. Okay, the next is this piece. This actually threads in, so the tapered end is actually at the smaller base, and you can thread that in. Put a little grease on there first, of course. And in this case, the shaft goes through the top because that's where the actual control is for where it bolts down to the tray. Okay, before we get started here, the worm gear goes in next. In this case, be pretty liberal with the grease because this is a very important part. These little notches go towards the exit, and it exits here where the cable actually goes in. Again, you want to go kind of liberal with the grease, and you'll be packing more grease in there once it's all together. And these face the bottom, inserts like so. Last part of the bearing. There's the tapered side rides in. And the last is the flat washer here. Plenty of grease again because the bearing does ride on this. This grease should be good for another 40 years, hopefully. Press that in there like so. And that's pretty much it. You just want to kind of pack that in with grease. And that's all there is to it. And then once this is actually mounted on the track, I'll clean it up real good. But this is to be tested also once it's mounted on the track. Okay, this is actually the center drive motor, call it a motor. To pry this open, you need a chisel or some sharp screwdriver to be able to get it in there. Just tap the one side, pry it loose, because it's got a crimped connection down here. The two halves are put together. As is the grease point, you can't really get that out, so this is why I open this to get in there and put new grease in there. And as you can see, pretty nasty in there. Just a tiny little bit of old grease, not even making contact anymore with the worm gear. After cleaning, reassembly is pretty straightforward. Again, this was a normal grease point here. I couldn't get that out without completely gangstering that piece. I don't have any extras of those. So I kind of leave that in. I just clean it as good as I possibly can. Be very liberal with the grease, because when we took it out, as you can tell, there was nothing on there hardly. Same with the bottom of this piece. And I also like to just put grease on the gear as well. Slip it in like such. This is the actual top bushing that rides on, so we want to make sure there's plenty of grease on this as well. And then as far as reassembling this all together, it's pretty straightforward. Let me put a little bit more grease in here because I won't see it for another 40 years. Slip that on and line it up best you can. And using a channel lock, you can simply put it back together again. And you could probably go ahead and punch that down a little bit to flatten those out. In this case, though, it's going to be bolted in. It's not going anywhere. It is, you can't just take it apart, so I'm going to leave it as it is. And there you have it.
Please like and subscribe for more restoration videos.